What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner, joining me as he always does for another edition of the Carolina Football Show. It's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, another fun show ahead. Not maybe as many topics as to hit on this week as we hit on last week, as we had I think it was an hour and a half long show, which is definitely I think that has to be the longest podcast we've ever done on this. And I said it in the show. I think we probably could have gone another hour because we were just, it was so many different kind of topics we wanted to go in depth on.
Do you remember what I did at the end? What I said, if anybody's
seven people reach out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We had
anybody?
Yeah. I apologize. I don't remember what his username was, but I got him taken care of.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was already checking our stuff out and loves it, and which is a great segue to our great special that you could read here in a second. But yeah, I can't remember. We had probably about more than a dozen people reached out.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty good because, in radio or in podcast type things, you're only going to get a small percentage of people that ever call a show or reach out about things or comment,
100%.
even on something like that. So we know a lot more listen. We can also look at the statistics, the analytics, a lot more listen. But more than 12 reached out, which I was really excited to see because I wanted someone to reach out because I wanted to give that away to somebody. So we did. We've given away 2 one-year memberships in the last week.
It's even more impressive too because we didn't even, like I said, you didn't even bring it up to an hour and 25 minutes into the podcast. So it's like nobody ever skips to the end of a podcast, really. If anything, you might skip around to the middle or skip some ads or something, but that means they were listening to it all the way through, which again, we appreciate.
We're spontaneous here at Tar Heel Illustrated.
Yeah, you got to keep these people on their toes, man. If we mention everything in the front, then they just click off after 5 minutes, which I'm sure some people already do. But you mentioned it a second ago. But like right now, 60% off a 1-year subscription at Tar Heel Illustrated. We got an awesome promo going on right now. It ends on Friday night. Just so you guys know, that comes out to $3.30 a month, which I can't think of really a single thing. You could maybe get couldn't even get 2 packs of Orbit with that, AJ.
Okay. No, not even close. I stopped off. When we do post-practice interviews in a football practice facility, they turn the fans off. They have 46 fans in there, or 26, whatever. Mac knows the number. He always talks.
Of course he does.
They turn him off when he addresses the team because it's kind of loud. So, and they don't turn him back on for interviews. So we're sitting there against the wall. There's no I'm a circulation guy. I've got a fan.
Me too.
I got a fan on up here.
Me too.
And I just start sweating, and it's really quite unbecoming. So on the way home, I always stop off at one of those joints before I get on the 440 and get like 2 Gatorade Zeros. So the other day I stopped off, got a Gatorade Zero, a 28 ouncer, and it was $3.29. So for the price of that, you could have for a month. You could have Tar Heel Illustrated for 1 year if you take advantage of this for the price of a Gatorade Zero.
That's crazy, man. I'm telling you, it's a heck of a deal. And guys, again, it runs out on Friday night. I'm gonna repeat it one more time: 60% off a 1-year subscription at TarHeelIllustrated.com. That comes out to $3.30 a month. I'm going to put the link in the description below. I'm also going to put the promo code you need to use, which is Kickoff 2024, to get signed up in the description below as well. So make sure you guys head on over after this video is done, or heck, you can multitask and do it while you listen to us on this podcast and go ahead and do it. But make sure you do it before Friday night because it ends on Friday evening. All right, AJ, real quickly, too, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you guys want to support, we say this all the time. If you don't want to be signed up, again, I don't know why you wouldn't when you think about how cheap this is for a 1-year subscription. But if you'd rather just shoot us a Venmo as a way to kind of say thank you for the content we put out, you can do that. I understand some people don't want to be, wrapped into yearly subscriptions. I can totally understand that. You can do that. You can shoot us as much money as you want. It's at Tar Heel Illustrated. You'll find that link in the description below as well.
Every Venmo we've gotten would have covered more than a month, 1 month with the promo that we're running right now.
I know. Again, we'd rather you sign up. We always say that, but again, we
get less money if you actually sign up.
Yeah, that's true.
But I want people to get more value for their dollars. So just
exactly.
You can give us away as a gift. We're going way long on this right here, but I'm excited about it. It's a Rivals Network thing. It's not something that we came up with, but we approved of it, and we're gonna, we love to when they do promos like this for prices like this. It's always exciting. I just have to badger the staff to keep pushing it on social media.
Yes,
I put stuff out there all the time, but we've had every person that sent us a Venmo with that same amount of money would be able to get this.
100%. I mean, again, it's a heck of a deal. It's one of the best deals we'll run all year. I can pretty much guarantee you that. So make sure you guys get signed up. And AJ, you'll be happy to know that I just retweeted our promo one more time. So should be fresh on the.
So when I badger in the staff and the THI staff group text, when I badger later today, I won't be talking to you.
Yeah. I always, I get why you do it because you got it. It has to be done. But I try to do it at least once a day just so people
do it right now. We'll segue into the actual show now, and I'll go ahead and badger the hell out of everybody right now.
Go ahead and do it. I'm pulling my curtain over here because the sun keeps popping in on my face every second.
If I could find it.
I'm going to give you a chance to find it. You already kind of know the rundown we're going to run through.
I'm going to do a voice text real fast, okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's time for me to badger everybody to push the promo again, please. Thank you.
Absolutely love that.
With being a voice text, it probably had half the words misspelled.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That happens to me a lot too. Yeah.
That'll get Kevin Roy going.
Yeah. Pointing out all your typos. But hey, guys, we appreciate everybody that signed up already. And if you haven't, go ahead and get signed up. Great time to do so ahead of the season as well. AJ, let's dive into today's topics. Again, we're going to try to keep this around about 30, 35 minutes in this one and not go an hour and a half. No promises on that, but this should be a little bit shorter of a.
We just used like 5 minutes on that crap.
Yeah, we did. So we've used about 5 now. So we got 30 minutes. Let's see if we can bang this out within 30 minutes. AJ, you're running a depth chart series right now. You put the first one out on Tuesday on our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com. Links in the description below. Go check that out. The reason I say that is because I think one of the biggest news, we were talking about it off camera, but we did a massive show last week. There hasn't really been a ton of new information that has come out, at least from the program since then. There hasn't been a ton of media availability either. Hence one of the reasons that this show's probably going to end up being a little bit shorter, just because I think a lot of the stuff that we've hit on already, we've hit on. There's no need to hit on again until, we see games actually being played or we receive more information from the program on it. So, but depth chart, Max said earlier this week last week that Carolina is not going to release a depth chart ahead of the Minnesota game. His reasoning for doing that is because Minnesota's not doing it. And I tweeted something out last week. I think it was last Friday or Saturday, saying that, I get it. I don't blame Carolina for doing that. I mean, I think when you think about the matchup ahead, season opener, Thursday night, Minnesota at home, going to be a tricky matchup already. I don't really see a need if Minnesota's not going to do it to give them any potential advantage by releasing out a depth chart. If that's how you want to look at it, you talk all the time about how coaches in particular in football, especially, are very, they're very, the analogy you've always used, which I love, is it's like they're playing in the D-Day invasion all the time. They don't want any secrets getting out, and they don't want to tell you about this because then this might lead to this. It's almost like taking things a little bit too seriously for information. I'm not saying Carolina's doing that, but I'm saying a lot of coaches around the country do that. So again, I get the move from Carolina. I will say this is the first time in the Mac Brown 2.0 era that we haven't had a depth chart before the season starts. And just to clear some things up too, you have to release a depth chart before ACC games, before ACC play. You don't have to do it before non-conference games. So again, that is another reason that Carolina was able to do this. I don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of fans are a little bit annoyed by it, and I completely understand that. But AJ, as someone who's, you've been at every press conference, you've been at every media availability, really in the Mac Brown 2.0 era, not just this year. What is your thoughts on maybe the shift in, I'm not going to say lack of media availability because we've had a ton, but it does feel like, and it kind of culminating in this depth chart situation is the first time this has happened. It does feel like that maybe the program is being a little bit more, I'm going to use the word low key. That's a newer term that some of my generation uses quite a lot, about releasing some information, keeping their cards a little bit closer to their chest than maybe they have done in the past. What is your thoughts on that shift? Are you surprised by it?
Well, first of all, my generation used low key as well.
Do you as well? Okay, good. I use it all the time.
That. Also, clarification, Mac didn't say it. We get Mac Friday for the Minnesota presser. Mm-hmm. We only get Mac. We don't get the coordinators or any players. Different topic for a different time. Although it's sort of related to this. They've definitely gone into bunker down mode a little bit. No doubt about that. But it was from a program spokesman who said,
yeah, excuse me. I should have, that's my apologies.
Yeah. Just to be specific, we talked to Larry Porter and Freddie Kitchens on Saturday after the scrimmage.
Mhm.
And then afterward, the spokesman said that we're not going to let y'all. We thought we were going to find out who the quarterback was this past weekend. In fact, Adam Smith and I were kind of pushing Jeremy last week after one of the media availabilities, saying, "Hey, is Matt going to come over and just kind of have a word with us before we talk to anybody else on Saturday?" Kind of poking to see what might be coming. No, and
Didn't come to fruition. No.
No, and I understand why they're doing it. Personally, as a guy who covers the team, I don't like it because I want to do everything I can. But I view all of this through a very different lens than fans do. I can see why fans would want to know, but most of them, I think, in a way, see it as exciting because you want to see, they're still wagering on who's going to run out in the field first. I will maintain that I've said all along, I think it's going to be Max Johnson.
Agreed. That's my opinion.
I think each time I've been around the team, I've increasingly believed that even more. Mm-hmm. And based on what we've learned about the scrimmage, Max had a really good scrimmage. Connor didn't have a great scrimmage. So there's more to that. But I get the gamesmanship. I get the whole PJ Flex not doing it. So why are we going to give him any advantage? I totally get it. If I was Mac Brown, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I just don't like it from a journalistic standpoint. It did force me to have to do the depth chart series. Fortunately, my wife and daughter are out of town the last several days. So I had the Orioles on mute in my office, and I'm grinding through this the last few days.
You live in the dream. Right,
each position group, got every player on scholarship listed. With statistics and notes, all kinds of cool stuff. It was a lot of fun. It was actually, in the end, it's healthy for me because I really got to grind myself through each position group and have a pretty fair idea what I think is going to happen. And we'll find out how accurate it was. But if I were them, I wouldn't do it. Now, Minnesota has been talking about Carolina. They've had some openness in their post-practice stuff, although they don't talk for a long time. PJ Fleck the other day, he does like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the case may be.
Like Larry Fedora all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is in some ways, although he answers questions more than Larry. Larry was good with some stuff, and Larry didn't want to talk about other things. But Carolina's gone into bunker down mode, Jacob. Mm-hmm. We talked to Lonnie Galloway and Jason Jones on Tuesday, and I'm asking Lonnie a few questions about Kobe Paysour, who hasn't been 100% healthy this past month like we thought he was going to be. And all I could get from Lonnie was he practiced today. So we'll find out. He's going to be another guy with a halo over his head that we're going to follow on Thursday night in Minneapolis. So I get it. If I were them, I'd probably do the same thing. I don't want to have to go through the side door to get information.
I know what you mean.
Any more than I already do. And I have a great working relationship with the program, as some of the other media around here do as well. And we don't normally have to do a lot of that. But PJ's playing games, so Mac's going to play games right there with him. And to be honest with you, Mac will be 73 2 days before the opener. And I love that at 73, he's sitting there at the card table, and you're not going to be able to call his bluff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him at all. And it's kind of what I said in my tweet. And we talked a little bit about it on the show last week about in the respect of playing more guys, of like how maybe playing more guys and resting your starters may give you a slight percentage advantage later in the season or later in the game. I look at this the same way as, okay, Minnesota's not releasing their depth chart. Why would Carolina release a depth chart? And again, it might have very minute effect on the game, but it could. You're dealing with the highest level of college football here. Little percentage gains can make a big difference in the game, can make a big difference to your preparation, your game plan. And again, I know that they played last year. I know there's a ton of tape on, for instance, quarterbacks, Max Johnson. Even if Connors announced as a starter 2 days ago, there's not really a lot of game tape, if at any, of him actually running with Carolina's first team and with a lot of the guys he'll be playing with. So again, there are certain position groups where it maybe doesn't matter, but I think we're also in a situation too, AJ, where if Minnesota released a depth chart, I think Carolina would have done the same thing. I think it's just, okay, if they're not going to do it, we don't have to do it. Why would we do it and maybe give them an advantage? I just look at it like that. So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, even with Connor, to your point, in the bowl game, a lot of starters, regular guys that would start now are no longer in the program.
Yeah,
that were on the field that day. So one of the things I love about some of the changes in college football is that the staffs are bigger, the paid staffs are bigger. Mm-hmm. You go to practice, there's a lot more people out there, and preparation is probably better than it's ever been before. So there's no way on earth that multiple people in Minnesota's football office haven't gone through all 1,624 Max Johnson snaps, like they are inspecting a massive murder or something like that. Like they know the DNA of every play.
No doubt.
And so they know everything. But why give it to them? But there's also some other ones. It'll be interesting to see what the depth chart looks like behind the guys at linebacker, right behind Kamen Rucker at the rush position. So there's some other things that Minnesota could glean from it. But once the game starts, they're going to see who runs on the field. And they've had all off season to prepare. And teams generally prepare more for openers, put more time into an opener against a quality opponent than they do during the regular season. And I know that Minnesota started Carolina work earlier this week. They had a press conference Monday. They had already started it on Carolina. I think on Wednesday, they go full throttle. Today, Wednesday, they go full throttle on Carolina. It's only Carolina. So they're going to give UNC a couple more full days than they'll give anybody else in their schedule moving forward. And that's kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's also an enormous game for them. It's a big game for both teams. This is a huge game for PJ Fleck in that program.
It is,
because they don't get quality non-conference opponents in their place very often, and they're building Carolina up. They saw what they were a year ago, 31-13. Drake threw for 400 yards or whatever it was, and they know that this is a challenging game. They know that one of the things I was impressed with PJ the other day, he's like, look, they got a lot of other dudes. They weren't a Drake May football team. They were a lot of other things, and many of those players are back. They have a ton of guys at skill that they have to be careful for. So they built this up to be an extremely difficult opponent. Coaches tend to do that, but they're very believable because I know Carolina really well. Yeah. And there's not one thing they've said that is inaccurate about UNC. So it's a big deal. And it's a big deal for Carolina. Because if after this game, and we'll talk schedule stuff at some other point in the next few days, but after this game, the schedule works out where if this is a Carolina team that doesn't stumble, they have a chance to do some interesting stuff with what that schedule looks like. But they got to get off to a good start, and it's a very difficult assignment going up there.
It is, yeah. Just for people who don't know, just because you mentioned that preparation, when will Carolina's preparation start for the Minnesota?
They've already started.
So some people
they were off. They scrimmaged Saturday. Mm-hmm. They were off Sunday and Monday, completely off, no practice. Mm-hmm. And Monday was first day of classes. They started in on Minnesota Tuesday. I think Wednesday is probably today they're full throttle.
Gotcha.
They're still going to work situation stuff. Like I know they work a lot on goal line. They work a lot on, 3rd and 4, and they work on getting the field goal unit on the field. A lot of stuff, a lot of organizational late game type stuff, red zone stuff on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They work on a lot because you screw that up and you can lose a game. But they are already into Minnesota prep, no doubt about it. And there's a lot to prep for. They got a new quarterback, the kid they transferred in from New Hampshire that they love. They love him so much they took him to Media Day, Big Ten Media Day. They've got a new defensive coordinator, a guy that used to be at JMU a few years ago. They've got some other new players, some skill guys. So there's a lot of new stuff, and Carolina is going to have to, expand their preparation. They're going to have to look at a lot of New Hampshire football film.
Oh yeah.
So, but this kid was really good in FCS, and I'm way past the time in my life where I judge a dude on what school he came from.
No, of course, yeah, it's a completely different era of college football now.
It's a totally different era. If you can play,
it's completely different. Yeah, I mean, there's no point in doing that. Just go look at the guys on NFL rosters who played at a school you've never heard of. I mean, there are plenty of them. So yeah, just figured we kind of needed to hit on that depth chart. I know it's a little bit of old news at this point, but we needed to just kind of talk about that and kind of why it signals a shift maybe in Carolina being a little bit more. Again, there's still been a ton of media availability, a lot more than most programs across the country give you. So we're not sitting here complaining. But again, we have to point out a change and shift that we've seen, because it is a little bit of a change than what we've seen the last 5 seasons.
And Mac will talk about it on Friday. Yeah. Excuse me. We get Mac Friday because they play on a Thursday. Everything's kind of screwed up, but we're only getting Mac. Normally in the game we get the coordinators. We get the coordinators, and the next day we get players. We're only getting Mac. And they don't want questions about the quarterback and other things being asked. So we're only getting Mac. It'll be the second time in the month of August we've talked to Mac.
Gotcha.
We talked to Mac. I had the one-on-one interview with Mac a week before the ACC kickoff in Charlotte. And you can still, all that stuff's still relevant. Because we didn't really even talk about the team. We talked about it an hour. We talked about a lot of those stuff. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. Then we had Mac for a half hour in Charlotte. Then he had the main press conference thing at the podium, which is not very useful.
Yeah, you don't get a ton out of that.
Then we had him after the first practice, which was July 29th. We've had him once since then. So once in the month of August, this will be the second time. Other than that, we talked to nobody in the program until after the Minnesota game.
And I'll say this too, because we were talking about this off camera. You made a great point about this, which again, I think just signals a little bit of the shift that we've seen. When Carolina takes the field against Minnesota on Thursday night next week, August 29th, you'll have only talked to one offensive player in 3 weeks, AJ. And who was it? He gives offensive lineman.
Howard Sampson.
It's different, man. You haven't talked to either quarterback.
We will not have talked to any players. This is as of next Thursday night when they run out on the field. It will have been 2 weeks since we had talked to a player, any player. And it will have been 3 weeks we had talked to just one offensive player, and that would be Howard Sampson, the offensive tackle.
It's different, man. It just is. And again,
by the way, it's a little taller every time I see him.
He's massive, man. 6'8", you said? I mean,
he's approaching 6'9".
He's an all-airport team All-American when you look at him.
Chip Lindsey said he's a future NFL guy. And he's only
with that size, yeah. If he can, I know he's a guy who was a little bit newer to football, I believe, out of high school, which is
he was. And he was also during the COVID era, so not many people saw him. Randy Clements recruited him to North Texas, and he was raw, but he's coming. I talked to Howard in January over at the football center, and he told me that he was a project. He said, I'm a project. It's going to take some time. I show up to practice in spring, and there he is starting at left tackle. Yeah, he surprised everybody. They love his footwork. They say he's really athletic. He's got very athletic and quick feet. He's got good balance. He's huge and doesn't rely on being huge. He does things properly, so it actually magnifies his strength and how big he is by doing things properly. I thought Ja'Kai Leftwich, the transfer from Georgia Tech, was going to come in and take his job right away. Based on what we know, and this could have changed here in the last few days, but Howard Sampson's going to be the starting left tackle. Trevion Green's going to be the starting right tackle, and combined they have like 130 starts or 130 snaps in college. But they love them both. They keep saying this offensive line is going to be better. They've got a center. They got a center who played 153 snaps in 4 years at Georgia. They've got a left guard, Malik McGowan, who has played a handful of snaps. He's had more reps on the punt shield team than he has on the offensive line in college. And then the one guy with experience is Willie Lampkin, and Willie Lampkin's damn good. He's 5'11", but he's damn good. He's played a ton of snaps. I think he's going to play in the NFL, even with his size. As some people like to joke, I like to ask him about getting under pad level. But if you know offensive line football, you get under a defensive lineman's pad level, you get under his pads, you own him, especially when you're a beast like Willie is.
Yeah, he uses it to his advantage. I mean, and then we spent a long time last podcast talking about the O-line and the question marks surrounding that, and why we're not necessarily convinced that's the case, and just trying to come to a reason of why is this being said when there's so many new faces down there.
I'm not disbelieving. And I report. Yeah. I got to report what they say. So when I write an article about how much better the offensive line is, it's through their words. And I have no reason to doubt what they're saying, but there are some things you simply just have to see it to believe it.
Exactly.
And that's the case with the offensive line to me. And also the defense. I think people have been so jaded by defense at Chapel Hill for years that they're going to believe it when they see it. I do think the defense will be better. I think they have a lot of guys on defense that have a chance to play in the NFL. I think they're very talented on defense. And defensively, it just comes down to how good are they at the point of attack.
Yes. Yes, that's what it all comes down to. Yeah,
and they're relying on a guy with not a great deal of snap experience to help out a lot. Josh Harris played 138 snaps at Ole Miss or whatever it was last year. He's played 569 in his career, but he's a mature guy. He's an older guy. He's married with 2 kids and one on the way. He's big. He came in at 350. He's down to 338 now. And as one of his teammates described, he eats blockers, which is one of my favorite terms, that and chewing glass, right?
That is great.
I love linemen that eat blockers. He eats blockers. I also think he was brought in because Travis Shaw isn't quite where they want him to be at this stage in his career. So there's a lot of reps that Harris is going to be. I think Josh Harris is the most important player on defense. He and Kevin Hester, who if he goes back to his 2022 form, would be huge. And Des Evans, this is a pro year. This is a contract year for Des Evans, essentially.
100%.
He's going to play in the NFL based on how he does this year, because if he is the same player he was last year, he may not even get a free agent deal.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get drafted. So he's got all the specs. When he walks into that room and they start checking off the checklist of things that you want if you're sculpting a defensive end, he's going to run the gamut. However, he's got to do it on the field. So it's a huge year for him.
Yeah, it's just, I couldn't agree more. I do believe their defense is going to be better too. I'm completely ready to be burned on that when they're not. But I am in a position where I would be genuinely surprised if they aren't better. And that's why I'm willing to come out here and say it. I'm not guaranteeing it. So if they give up 500 yards at Minnesota, don't come tweet me. But that's that's my prediction.
But that doesn't mean they won't be better, because they were pretty good early last year and then fell apart.
And then exactly.
I think I will go out and say that they're absolutely going to be better. They're going to be better because Huzzy's they're better at corner than they've been since Butch Davis was there.
Yes.
With Huzzy and Allen. I mean, they're both could play in the NFL. Allen's just got amazing specs, and he's a little bit stronger. They talk a lot about knocking guys off their landmark. They're going to play press coverage. They're going to be more physical at the point of attack. They don't want to allow what they call easy access throws. Raise your hand if you sat back and watched them allow easy access throws ad nauseum the last couple of years. They're not going to do that. Yeah, my feet are in the air.
Yes,
they're not going to do that. That is one of their points of emphasis. They go too deep at safety with guys who have started and can play. They've worked a lot on tackling in the secondary, open field tackling, bringing guys down, not having to rely on 3 people to bring someone down once someone has the ball past the second level, but 1 player bringing them down. I just think they're going to be better defensively. The concern is depth at linebacker, depth at the rush position, and also how effective they are in the middle of defense. Because at the end, if Dez doesn't play that well, then they got Bo Atkinson and take a lot of snaps. And Bo Atkinson is ready to explode.
Yeah, literally. A lot of love.
I think he's going to have a very, very good season. So I'm really, really interested in seeing all the things work defensively with the misdirection, the disguising, the chaos, the mayhem, the controlled mayhem, the communication. The earpiece is going to be with a safety instead of a linebacker, because they can see everything, and the safeties communicate a lot in this defense. And Jeff Collins' track record as a defensive coordinator, his last 2 stops, really specifically as a DC, were Florida and Mississippi State. Go look at the numbers, man. They don't lie. One of his Mississippi State teams, that was when they were number 1 in the country for a while. I think they had Prescott at quarterback during that period. And defensively, they led the SEC, I think, in sacks and forced turnovers that year.
It's big time, man. That's what you want. That's all. I think that's all Carolina fans are asking for, is just improvement, and again, consistent improvement. And I put out earlier this week, I did a thread on Twitter for reasons to be optimistic and reasons to be pessimistic about the defense. And my reasons to be optimistic and pessimistic about the team this year. And one of my reasons to be optimistic was Jeff Collins and that factor coming in. And not only that, the guys that he's got coming back. I mean, on paper, I basically wrote it in the tweet, but said with Jeff Collins factor, Minister of Mayhem, and the guys that Carolina's getting back, keywords, and the guys that Carolina's getting back, K'Mon Rucker, Elijah Huzzy, Marcus Allen, you mentioned, Power Eccles, Will Hardy in the secondary. There's a lot of experience there. That was a reason for me to be optimistic about this team. There's no reason to believe they shouldn't be better defensively, but I say that to also say that, like we just talked about it a second ago, one of my reasons to potentially be pessimistic was the defensive line, because I love what Ted Monachino brings on paper, and I love the experience he has. I think that speaks for itself and what he's been able to do as a position coach at both levels, but specifically on the defensive line. But I also like a lot of the parts they added. Joshua Harris. I like the fact that Travis Shaw slimmed down a little bit. I like the fact that Kevin Hester's back. I like what we're hearing from Bo Atkinson and Des Evans, and having K'Mon Rucker. I like a lot of those pieces. But the reason I said I think you can still have a little bit of pessimism in that group is it's another group that still has everything to prove, because in the Mac Brown era, AJ, they've been, I mean, I hate to say it, but what has that group been for a majority of it? I would say mediocre at best. I mean, they had some flare-ups at times, but the consistency at that group throughout a season has just not been there. They've been downright awful as a defensive line at times. So again, there's different ways you can look at it, but again, it all starts in the trenches. But I still come out and say I would be genuinely surprised if this defense isn't much improved than it was last year. When
you mentioned the positives a minute ago, you didn't mention any defensive linemen, and that's the thing. What you're looking at is you're looking at older guys who are in their fourth or fifth years in college.
Exactly.
In Harris's case, his sixth year, where you're asking them to play better than they have. So Kevin Hester had a down year last year. I think his career has been better than what his grade was coming into college, but he also didn't start playing football until his senior year in high school. He was a basketball player.
Yeah.
So he's played above expectation. Des Evans has not, to the point where Jeff Collins and Ted Monachino both have acknowledged that. And it's something that they've talked to Des about. The potential's way up here, but he's been down here. Jahvaree Ritzie has not played.
Forgot about him. Yeah.
He's in his fourth year, and his name barely comes up.
Malik McGowan. I mean, not Malik McGowan. Jacoby Cohen, excuse me.
Jacoby Cohen, he's had some injuries and stuff like that. He was having a great fall camp and then got a little bit banged up. He was running with the ones at times. He's another former four-star.
Highly recruited
guy. All these four-star dudes. Ritzie was a four-star. Evans was a high four-star. He wasn't too far away from being a five. Shaw, five-star kid who has not come close to meeting or even approaching the expectation. Not just meeting them, not even approaching them. Harris is a kid who has not played a ton, 138 snaps, whatever it was at Ole Miss last year, and didn't play a ton at NC State before then. So you're asking a lot of older guys to have the light go on and have it go on simultaneously, which is where, if I have any skepticism about the defense, and I'm not being critical of these guys, it's just, it's not their fault that expectations were real high for them. Des Evans didn't ask for a four-star ranking in a top 60 in the Rivals 250. So I'm just saying, other people are responsible for that, but the expectations are still the expectations. Those conversations have been had there. I'm sure all these kids thought and expected that they would play better than they have and more consistently.
Of course.
We see flashes, but the flashes are just that, flashes.
They have to be more consistent.
So to me, it's up front. I think they're fine everywhere else, especially if there are no injuries to Rucker or at linebacker. And Amari Campbell, we think, will play in the Minnesota game. If those two guys stay healthy, then the rest of the defense is in really good shape. Really good. Scouts are going to come to Kenan Stadium this year to watch those guys in the back of the defense.
No doubt.
How the ones play up front is going to be perhaps the biggest key to the season, because the offensive line can be average and quarterback play so-so, but you can win a lot of games 24-17. The Iowa Hawkeyes say hello. But if the defensive front's not very good, you've seen what's happened in this program before when they have to try to outscore people sometimes. It's not always going to happen.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think they'll be better defensively, but that's one of the reasons I put that D-line. I really put the trenches too, because I was talking about both sides of the ball of the conversation, AJ, we just had, not in terms of there being maybe a lot of older guys on the O-line that have come in or whatever that have maybe not produced. The O-line's very similar too, because I know, again, we don't need to keep rehashing this because we've talked about it, but it's a group with a lot of pieces and a lot of guys that have played little to no football at North Carolina, and some played little to no football in college really yet. So again, believing that they're just going to be this better group is something that we're being told, but as journalists, we have to sit down and try to figure out, well, okay, this is what I'm being told, but
Yeah.
where's this coming from? And I think, like we talked about a lot last week, we haven't really been able to necessarily pinpoint anything besides maybe what they're seeing in practice and maybe what they think the potential of this group could be. But potential is just potential until it's fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And at least in the case of the O-line, your tackles are still young.
Exactly. There's
Very young. So they've played about as much as they should have played at this juncture in their careers. Before having a role like this. The one older guy that hasn't played, well, McGowan's an older guy, but he hasn't played much, but Blasky hasn't played a whole lot, but he also has 2 national championship rings. He's playing behind pros. In Malik McGowan's case, he played behind guys that are in camps, older guys. You had Montilus, you had Barnes, you had all those guys that Barnes played, dangled between tackle and guard. He had a lot of older guys that have been there for a while before him, in front of him. So he's getting pushed by Aiden Manfield. And for a while there was Jonathan Adorno and Zach Rice in the mix. But I do think left guard could be a position of weakness on the offensive line, simply because I don't know what to expect. I have an idea what Sampson and Travion Green are going to give them. I think Blasky's going to be fine at center. Willie Lampkin was preseason first team all ACC for a reason. I think the giant question mark is left guard, and I would not be surprised to see Ja'Kai Leftwich get reps. He started working at the left guard once they got into fall camp. He's the primary sub at both tackles right now, and I could conceivably see very little drop-off if he ends up starting in one of those spots, but he's also getting a lot of work in a guard. I can see Leftwich I almost consider him a 6th offensive line starter. I can see him getting a couple series at left tackle, a couple series at right tackle, a couple or more series at left guard. And that's 6 or 7 right there, and you're talking about 11 or 12 possessions in a game.
Yeah, it's again, the trenches are something I'm going to be paying hard attention to when the season starts, because really that's where I would say that's probably where my biggest question marks lie, besides the quarterback, which is just, I think with quarterback, at least you can look at some stats. If it's Johnson, but okay, he's done some nice thing and almost threw for 3,000 yards his sophomore year at LSU. You can kind of say, okay, there are tangible things you can pick up. Harrell, maybe not as much just because he doesn't have that experience, but we've seen glimpses of potential in some of the cameo appearances he has had. But again, AJ, we've talked about this a lot, man. How many times we're flipping it? I'm going to make a point about Carolina's defense to make a point about the importance of a good offensive line. How many times have we seen a backup quarterback torch Carolina because he's got 55 minutes back there to throw? You can make a very average quarterback look really good if he's got time to throw the ball. So again, if Carolina has an improved O-line, that will help out the quarterback situation. And then vice versa. If Carolina has an improved defensive line that gets a pass rush consistently, that will help out the defense as a whole. So it all starts in the trenches. That's not rocket science. But again, AJ, those are two groups that we don't know what's going to happen there, just because there's new faces and new guys. And also we're relying on older guys, like you said, with the D-line taking a step that they haven't taken yet. That usually doesn't happen. So they are toss-up positions for me and for Carolina fans, why they say, I'll believe it when I see it, because we haven't seen it yet, And
we've got 8 more days to just wait.
Yeah, no, it's just,
I've told you, I know you know this now. You've been around long enough, you know it. But when I tell people August is the longest freaking month of the year.
It really is.
What do you mean? It's 31 days. It's no longer than any other month. Yeah, it is. It's the next 8 days are going to be incredibly long, because other than having Mac on Friday, I like to push the story forward. I've told you before, it's like every day you move the story forward. And right now we're kind of in a limbo mode where I'm doing everything I can to squeeze every bit of juice out of what we've gotten so far to provide relevant content to our readers and here on one of these shows, which is why I decided to do the depth chart piece series by position group. Today, at some point after, or this evening, I guess, I'll run quarterback. And people will be, who does he think is going to be the starting quarterback? It doesn't mean anything until they run out on the field, and then either I'll be right or wrong. There'll be the offensive line. We have wide receiver, tight end, defensive line, linebacker, and I included rush there. And then secondary, I did safety, corner, and star. I'm pretty confident in most of those, but that's why I decided to do it that way. Also because we need content.
Exactly.
That's why I'm after Lee Wardlaw to please get in some recruiting articles, Lee. We need the content, son.
We need it, man. He's been, and again, let me give Lee a shout out. I know you have too. He's been killing it a lot of this offseason with his content.
His stuff on the boards, the value. That's where you want to sign up.
Yeah.
You only see a certain amount of front page pieces from Lee, but a lot of stuff's on the boards too. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so also if you want to sign up, David always got the insight on basketball recruiting visits. They have a ton of official visits and basketball set up starting here in a couple of weeks with the weekend of the Charlotte game. Mm-hmm. So sign up.
Sign up, guys. Sign up.
David has no peers when it comes to that stuff.
He kills it, man. $330 a month right now. Again, links in the description. Last thing, AJ, because we've managed to somehow go 40 minutes on this again. We could probably talk another hour because that's what we do. But I just want to bring up one more thing.
Promoted for about 6 minutes.
Yeah, that didn't help as well. Pathetic. One more thing, wide receiver group. The only reason I want to bring this up is because you talked to Lonnie Galloway, wide receiver coach, associate head coach on Tuesday about the wide receiver position. He said he hopes to play 6, which I think you can easily kind of count 6 right here that are, going to play, which we did off camera. But the reason I wanted to bring it up too is just because I think it also brings questions about, he's saying he hopes to play 6. Well, it brings questions up about guys like Christian Hamilton, Chris Culliver, Paul Billups, Christian Hamilton. It brings up question about, I already said Hamilton, excuse me. It brings up questions about those guys of like, okay, well, maybe they don't factor in as much as we might have thought they will, at least in the beginning of the season. So just real quickly, what are your thoughts on that? Because, just to name them together, if I was to name 6, J.J. Jones, Nate McCullum, you would think Gavin Blackwell would be in there somewhere, Kobe Paysor. There's 4 right there, and I know there's Jordan 2 Shipp. That I'm blanking on. Yep, Jordan Shipp, excuse me, that's 5.
Jordan Shipp has got sick talent.
Yeah, really good player. That's 5 right there.
But he's been banged up some.
Yeah.
So is Paysor. I've been trying to get information on Paysor. I love Kobe Paysor. I love his game. When healthy, man, he is a fun player. He's the one that caught the left-handed touchdown pass from Drake last year at Pitt.
He's exceptional.
He broke out when they went to App State a couple of years ago. And you're like, whoa, this guy, he was very undervalued in the recruiting process. According to the recruiting rankers, he should have been higher than a 3. He plays like a 4, 4.5 in college. I love him, but he had the injury. He broke the foot last year. Then he came back. He was going to play in the bowl game, got hurt again. Then he had another surgery in the spring. And we were told that when fall camp started, 100% ready to go. He looked ready, but I think there have been some setbacks. I don't know 100% sure. I haven't gotten it fully, the specifics of it confirmed. But I did ask, I know that he hasn't been at every practice, and I asked Lonnie specifically about Kobe, and I tried to come back and ask him some follow-ups, and he had the same answer. He said Kobe practiced today. So a healthy Kobe Paysor makes this an outstanding receiver unit. You know what you're going to get with J.J. Jones, which is some high-level stuff. He's going to make the tough catches. He gives you that guy on the edge. You can run the fade to him in the end zone.
He was a leading receiver last year. I know Ted didn't play as much, but still leading receiver, yeah.
Yeah, and he was very reliable. I think Nate McCollum, we were told earlier in fall camp that Nate McCollum was looking like he did in the Minnesota game. So it was called Minnesota Nate.
He was great against Minnesota.
He had 15 catches against the Golden Gophers last year. So I asked Lonnie yesterday, I said, we've heard that Minnesota Nate's been out there all month. Is that what you've seen, Minnesota Nate? And he started laughing. He said, we've seen Minnesota Nate. Yeah, so really he can be huge. I'm telling you right now, if Jordan Shipp is healthy, he's going to play a lot and he's going to be very productive. He has got it all written on. He is the it guy in that room. I think an X factor is, where is Gavin Blackwell? Blackwell's a guy, another 4-star who has not performed to expectation. Is this a year where he becomes consistent? And he's consistent with his play, so he's consistent with his reps. That will be very important. I watch Culliver and Hamilton in practice, and I'm like, and even Billups, I'm like, these guys can play. But Lonnie Galloway's a bit of a, he's tough to crack his rotation.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of standards, very high standard to get on the field and crack the rotation. I think Alex Taylor's had a good fall camp, but he's a freshman. So, Vari Green, another freshman. So they're going to have to wait their turn. But when he said 6, I was surprised. I thought he was going to say 8 or 9. But I haven't been in practice a ton. He knows what he's doing. And I think it's actually good if you got some guys that maybe don't make it that rotation, but are rotation quality. Because the depth in that room is outstanding. It is better than it's been. The depth there is better than it's been since Max come back. The depth and quality at safety is better. The depth and quality at corner is better. The depth and quality at tight end is even better. And running, I think running back's in good shape. I absolutely adore Davion Goss, and I think Barlow is sort of a Bruce Brooks type that can give them some of that stability in a backup role. I mean, the program's in really good shape in a lot of areas and getting stronger. That's why I think there's a chance they could have a really, really good season, Jacob. I really do.
Yeah.
But
I think
there's a lot of question marks that need to be answered, and we'll get a lot of that against Minnesota. As far as personnel use, who's going to be on the field, who isn't, and also the quality in the trenches and at quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, man. I'm looking forward to the season getting rolling because I'm tired of talking about stuff that might happen and might not happen. I think we've analyzed as much as we can, man. And again, like you said, we still got 8 days before the opener. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fascinating because it's a tricky test, game one. We're going to do another football show on Sunday morning, tentatively. That's the plan. That'll be previewing the Minnesota game, obviously kind of back to our normal scheduled routine when it comes to the game week shows for the UNC football show. So I just want to plug this real quick. If you are a subscriber at TarHeelIllustrated.com, if you're not, get signed up before the promo ends Friday. We're going to be putting something on our premium message boards. It's only going to be available to our premium subscribers. And this is going to be something we're going to do throughout the rest of the season, throughout for every UNC football show. We're going to allow subscribers to, have their questions. We're going to put out a thread every week on our premium boards where you can go in there and ask us a question that you want us to answer on the UNC football show. We're going to select 2 of those questions every week to answer. So get them in as early as you can once that thread goes up. And again, this is not something we're going to be offering on Twitter, our social media, nothing. It is exclusive to our subscribers at TarHeelIllustrated.com. We feel like just a little bit of way also to get people more involved over there because we have great chatter on the boards, but I think it'll be even cooler if we can answer some of those questions on the show. And that segment will be right around this time at the end of every football show because we are about to wrap this one up. So I just wanted to throw that in, especially with the promo going on right now. You can get signed up and you get access to do stuff like that too, among a billion other things that you get access to when you're a premium subscriber. So looking forward to getting that launched. And AJ's also going to be rolling out a little bit of preview stuff as well when he's going to look at a little bit more of the schedule.
A lot of previews. By the way, that was another great Jacob Turner idea.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. I'll put my hand up to that one. I've been trying to think of a way to get subscribers more involved. I know a ton of podcasts do Q&As at the end. And again, I think the key with this one is we didn't want to just offer it to everybody because we're only going to pick 2 questions anyway every show because we don't want to spend half the show answering questions when we've got a million other things to talk about and we're already an hour and a half into a podcast. But this will be a way just for people like you guys to get more involved and get a little bit more incentive to sign up. So if you want to do that and think that's something you're interested in, links in the description below. Use that promo code ends on Friday night to get 60% off. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones, another edition of the UNC football show. AJ, we might be doing a UNC basketball show as well. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Keep stay tuned for that. That'll be rolling out
in about 90 seconds.
Yeah, that'll be we'll be going live probably on Thursday. So stay tuned for that one. I know people love a little basketball chat 365 days a year. Not quite the same with football, but people do love a little bit of basketball chat no matter when it is. So appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.